Marhaba, Shalom and welcome to the exciting podcast Israel and Palestine Unpacked that is dedicated to exploring the complexities of the ongoing political situation between Palestinians and Israelis. Throughout the course of this podcast, it is my hope that we can delve into the historical and contemporary events and ideas that have shaped the course of this long-standing geopolitical and humanitarian crisis, as well as explore the ongoing and unresolved issues, while remembering the human cost, experiences and perspectives. The situation has been brought into sharp focus nationally and internationally by recent events that have dominated our screens and our thoughts. The aim here is to be as sensitive as possible, as emotions are easily triggered. It is important to note that the topic will be approached from an academic position to unpack and understand the issues, and that all views expressed are those of the interviewees alone. In today's episode, we are speaking with an Israeli from Jerusalem and a Palestinian from Ramallah. Both cities are just 16 kilometers apart from one another, with Ramallah geographically located north of the former. Jerusalem is a city steeped in profound religious, spiritual, and political significance, standing at the crossroads of history and identity. It embodies the sacred aspirations of three major faiths and holds deep political meaning as a focal point of national dreams and struggles for both Israelis and Palestinians. Ramallah is a city of striking contrasts, where tradition and modernity coexist in dynamic harmony. As the seat of the Palestinian Authority, it serves as a political and administrative hub, yet it also thrives as a cultural and social centre. Bustling markets, lively cafes, and contemporary art galleries bring vibrancy to its streets, while historic landmarks, including mosques and churches, offer a poignant connection to its rich heritage. I do hope that you find this episode of Israel and Palestine Unpacked informative, and if you would like to receive more content, you are welcome to subscribe and join us as we journey to gain insightful perspectives and knowledge together. In our first interview, we are speaking to Daniel, who was born in Israel in 1981, to parents who were founders in the Messianic movement and who currently serves as the office manager at Netivyah Bible Instruction Ministry. After completing his military service with the Israel Police, he pursued studies in political science and sociology at the Hebrew University. Daniel is a dedicated father of four and plays a pivotal role in Netivyah's mission to teach God's Word and assist those in need. In this interview, Daniel begins by talking about his family background, why they chose to live in Israel, as well as the changes that have occurred across Jerusalem.
I was born to Messianic Jewish parents, that is, Jews who believe in Jesus, who are Christian, and who moved to Israel a few years before I was born because they felt that that's the place that God wanted them to be. So, and even more so when they moved from the center, from the coast to Jerusalem. So that is the home that I grew up in, a home of Jews who believe in the Old and New Testament, in Jesus, and made a practical, actionable life change based on it.
Are there any specific experiences? Can you pinpoint anything in time growing up in the city that have had a profound impact on shaping your views?
Well, there's certainly unique things about Jerusalem that are amazing experiences. For example, we just had the Day of Atonement and the Yom Kippur, which is the most sacred and holy day in the Jewish calendar. And if one has the privilege to experience it in Jerusalem, then it is unique in all the world because the entire city shuts down. Every single aspect of the city shuts down. There are no cars drive in, no public transportation, no traffic lights operate in. There's no stores, no restaurants, no 7-Elevens, nothing. Everything is shut down. And even more than that, if you're able to get to the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, which is the outer wall of Solomon's temple, or Herod's temple, I suppose, down in the middle of the old city, and it's right near the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Temple Mount, then on the eve of the Day of Atonement, there is such a spiritual feeling there, even for secular people, even for agnostics, even for people who have no theological belief in a higher power or in a God. Since your question was about a specific experience that relates to Jerusalem, then during the Second Intifada, I served in the Israeli police in Jerusalem, and one of the key events there was the bombing of the Sbarro pizzeria. And since my service was in downtown Jerusalem, what's known as the Russian compound, which is the district headquarters of the police, and it's about a minute run from the Sbarro pizzeria, then I can say that that was an event that I'll never forget, specifically the smell. And it's not easy event. It was very jarring, to say the least. But it certainly is something that one remembers, period.
Yeah. What do you think that other Israelis living in different cities such as Tel Aviv, Netanya, Petah Tikva don't have that, say, an Israeli Jerusalemite has? What differing experiences do you think that they would possess?
Well, in Israel, especially in the last 5 or so years, there's been a very large conflict between two political groups in the country. Basically, I'm simplifying it, but basically between the right and the left, between those who support Bibi Netanyahu and those who don't support Bibi Netanyahu, and between those who are more religious and those who are less religious. And as I'm sure that many of your audience are aware, there was a judicial reform known by its opposers as a judicial revolution that's ended with October 7th, but went on for a year from the current government's election. And there was a term that was coined that's called the state or country of Tel Aviv, in Hebrew, Medinat Tel Aviv. And basically that indicates the difference between those living in the cities you mentioned and those near it, Tel Aviv, Petah Tikva, Netanya, Ramat HaSharon, Herzliya, basically the coast, the Gush Dan cosmopolitan, and the rest of the country. And the people living in Tel Aviv and its surroundings generally are left-wing and secular and anti-religion, and they're much more liberal, much more progressive, and each one can take those terms in whatever place they prefer to take them, whether they're positive or negative. And the rest of the country, including Jerusalem, but also the south and the north, the periphery of the country, the Galilee, the Negev, are a majority much more religious or conservative or traditional, and much more right-wing, much more in favor of Bibi Netanyahu and his Likud party, as opposed to the center, where the high-tech is, and they're much more left-wing. So it's two different populations that are both Jewish and stuck together, but very different politically and religiously, and in what they want for Israel. Those in the state of Tel Aviv want a globalized, democratic, secular nation whose citizens can be citizens from a global country. And those who are not from the state of Tel Aviv want a democratic Jewish state where there's much more emphasis on tradition, on freedom of religion, on preserving the land of Israel. And that displays itself, of course, in many aspects, be it religion or be it political.
Taking the focus back more onto Jerusalem, and Palestinians place great importance on the centrality of East Jerusalem as the capital of a future Palestinian state. In your opinion, Daniel, does a compromise position exist that fulfills both the national and political aspirations for both Israelis and Palestinians for sharing sovereignty over the city?
Well, I suppose one should first take a step back and see if there is a relevant place for a Palestinian state before talking about what should be its capital. with that in mind, one has to take a further step back and see who the Palestinians are. If we want to lay the groundwork for that, we go back to the Bedouin tribes that moved from Saudi Arabia and Egypt into between the Jordan and the Mediterranean into this area in the late 19th century, because that's where the Bedouin tribes that today call themselves Palestinians come from. They have not been here for thousands of years, despite claims, the majority of them. And they are a nomadic tribe that settled over time and have been weaponized by the Arab world to become this new concept of Palestinians. Palestine comes from the Roman name imposed on Judea when they wanted to squash the revolutional tendencies of the Jewish people after the 3 Roman Jewish wars, and changed the name from Judea to Syria Palestina as their province. But let's say that we've got a group that have defined themselves as Palestinians and wish to have national aspirations and would like to have a country similar to the Basques and the Catalonians, and for whatever reason we decide that they should have a country, and we decide that it's in the interest of the Middle East, the world, and foremost Israel, that there should be such a country, that it's one that will be peaceful and not continue what history has shown us of them trying to kill us at every chance. But let's go with the utopian future that all that is possible. Then there's no reason why in such a situation, when such a country comes to pass, and I would assume that such a country would also have the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria, there's no reason why part of East Jerusalem can't be its capital.
Palestinians would argue, and there are many Israeli historians, such as Ilan Pappé, for example, while Palestinian national identity did not exist, because the idea of national identity is a modern invention. Surely over the period of hundreds of years, there has been a Arabization of the populations from the 7th century onwards, as well as yes, those migration into and out of the land, which is no different from any other particular piece of land in the world or any other country, as different peoples and cultures and societies shape people's different views. Surely, though, over the centuries, Palestine started to develop an Arab sense of identity as they were Arabicized and as they were gradually Islamized from Judaism and Christianity. In addition to any tribal migrations that occurred in the 19th century, there is a long history of what became an Arab population in the lands. How would you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I'm going to jump on one thing that you said, which is that it's no different than any other country, which is one, I suppose, reasoning that isn't used often. Somehow, when it comes to Israel, it's very special, and there's the whole. The Jews say it's ours 3,000 years ago, King David, 4,000 years ago, Abraham, blah 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 blah. And the Palestinians say it's ours. We've been here for thousands of years. I've got the key from the great-great-grandfather's house. He's been, 20 generations. And how is this different than any other country in the world? Somehow people seem to think it is, because in the rest of the world, all of that doesn't matter. In the rest of the world, if each existing country today is the country that the people moved there and were successful, whether militarily or otherwise, and they're there, and hooray for them. I mean, if you look at the United States, I'm not even going to go into the whole Native Americans, even though one could, but look at New York, that was, American, and before that British, and before that Dutch, and so on and so forth. And it's just whoever is successful, and once again, it doesn't have to be militarily, but often it is there. And that's all there is to it. And no one looks back at your great-great-grandpappy's barn and say, oh, he owned the land. And if it is, then it's dealt with in a judicial way and not in a national way. And somehow in Israel, it's different. But I'll go back to your question, which is, without a doubt, there were Jews and Arabs living here for hundreds and thousands of years. And some of them never moved and have been here long term. I mean, yes, there have been Jews and Arabs in the Holy Land in Israel for thousands of years. But nevertheless, as you said, they never had a political aspiration. They never had a national aspiration, not the Jews and not the Arabs. And only in the 19th century did the Jews start to have a national aspiration, the end of the 19th century, about 1880, with Herzl and onward. And only in the 20th century, late 20th century, did the Arabs start to have a national aspiration. Even in the beginning of the 20th century, during the different suggested partition plans, the Arabs were opposed to it because they did not have national aspirations or a cohesive ability to, I don't know, macro vision such a thing, because they were in their tribal culture. So yes, there have been Arabs here in Israel the whole time. And by Arabs, of course, I mean human beings that lived within the Arab Peninsula in the Middle East for hundreds and thousands of years. The majority of them became Muslim after the 7th century, as you mentioned. But what is the Palestinian people? Again, it's not a ethnic people group. It's not like the Marranos or the Druze or the Kurds or the Jews that have a cohesive history, language, religion, flag, land, and so on. It's a group that came together for the sole purpose of being weaponized, to be weaponized against Israel.
Okay. They would point to cultural, historical, and social roots in the land as being a part of that origin story of a nation. Even though if we do put aside our differences over these matters, you stated earlier that you can see a place where Palestinians could have some sense of sovereignty over East Jerusalem. In your opinion, what does that look like? Because when I look back to Camp David in 2000, Ehud Barak was prepared to transfer outer neighborhoods of Jerusalem initially to some sense of Palestinian control. And then there was the pressure to want to have sovereignty over those inner neighborhoods as well, and then the disagreements over how or if the old city would be divided and who would have access to what. What role do you see the international community having in this? Can they be a force for good? Should there be some kind of an international condominium, as was suggested in 1948, that would be controlled by the United Nations, for example? How do you think this would be taken by general everyday Israelis living in the city? What do you think of the practicalities of this, as well as the potential issues that this could bring?
Well, earlier in our conversation, I caveated that all of this idea is in a utopian situation where they don't want to kill us, and so on and so forth. So I'll continue that direction, because currently there's no partner for peace. There's no trust on either side. And there's a lot of difficult, challenging situations that need to be overcome. For example, there's blockades everywhere that make the life of Palestinians miserable. And there's limitations on when they can travel and where they can travel, and medical care, and so on and so forth. So, and I'm saying that because I'm a Jew, and I can see that there's challenges that need to be overcome in order for any type of civil future to take place. And but assuming, again, I don't know how this could happen, but assuming that there was a generation, because I don't believe it will be in mine, that both sides will be able to come to terms that could bring a peaceful future, then obviously the rest is easy to solve. I mean, it sounds complicated, but the neighborhoods that are majority Arab could be transferred to control of the Palestinian Authority or whoever would be in charge of the Palestinian national entity. And the neighborhoods that are majority Jewish would stay in the hands of Israel. And certain points could be controlled internationally, even though, once again, there's a caveat that so far the international forces in the Middle East are beyond useless. Like there's no peace partner at the moment on either side, the international community is beyond useless at the moment. So in the utopian future where all of this could fall into place, one would also hope that the international community would be a little bit more useful.
You're listening to Israel and Palestine Unpacked with me, your host, Porrick. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, please feel free to contact me at Israel-Palestine-Unpacked, all one word, @gmail.com. Or alternatively, you can connect via our Facebook page or X account. All contact information can be found below in the description. Before we move on to the next interview, I would like to announce that in 2025, we will be shifting focus and looking specifically at the important role that Jerusalem plays between both Palestinians and Israelis. We will continue to delve into the experiences and views of the people who make up the city, offering a personal yet intimate look at daily life in this deeply contested space. However, we will examine the key issues such as the important historical attachment that both peoples have towards this city and how this has shaped their identities. This includes the development of settlements, evictions, and the stumbling block that the city has become for any possible future peace agreement. Through these discussions, we hope to unpack the various components that make Jerusalem such a pivotal and emotional focal point. In our second interview today, we're speaking to Musa, a dedicated teacher within the Palestinian education system who is based in the city of Ramallah. Passionate about nurturing young minds, he finds joy in sharing knowledge and fostering curiosity among his students. Beyond the classroom, he is an avid traveller who enjoys exploring diverse cultures, gaining inspiration from the world around him, as well as being a lifelong student of English. The conversation starts with us both speaking about life in Ramallah for him and for Palestinians in general.
Ramallah is a diverse city. Ramallah has people in Ramallah are more open-minded than other cities in Palestine because many people in Ramallah has other citizenship like American citizenship and European citizenships. Also, Ramallah originally is a Christian country. There are many churches and it's mixed Christians and Muslims. So Ramallah, also the location in Ramallah is special because it's on top of series of mountains. And Ramallah is the most developed city in Palestine. So you can find anything in Ramallah: parks, swimming pools, schools, universities, colleges, and many other things. This is first. Second, about political view. Palestinian Authority had put the main field in Ramallah because they want Ramallah to be the center of decisions, center of control the other cities, center of the presidency. So the President Abbas live in Ramallah. And the freedom in Ramallah, you can move freely than other cities. That's Ramallah. Every city has special aspect. About other cities, it's not easy. Every city has many checkpoints to get in. If you want to reach any city, you have to go through many checkpoints.
Your answer specifically focuses on Israel. However, what is life actually like living under the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah?
Okay, they have no control on Palestinian territory. They just control it by name. Okay, because Israeli prevent them to do their jobs. Okay, so they don't make enough efforts to spread their control on the city. Okay, on the Palestinian territory. Okay, they are Palestinian Authority by name. The authority is Israel. Israel control and give orders, and they follow the orders from Israel. They are not independent. They're independent by celebrating in particular events. So that's our problem. Also, they don't solve problems like financial issues, like social issues. The Palestinian Authority should day by day try to develop to improve our people's life, not just collect money, tasks, or give them low salaries. Living here is so expensive. We need someone to support us. And the only one who can support us, Palestinian Authority, we will make things, that's a problem. And unfortunately, we just under fake authority.
And so what is life like economically in Ramallah? Like you mentioned that Ramallah is a different city to other cities in the Palestinian territories in the West Bank. Nablus, Jenin, for example, Tulkarm, Qalqilia. In what way is Ramallah different?
Ramallah different. Look, it's the war impact on Ramallah economy. And many trade shops closed. I will not say many, but like some of shops closed, because of the bad situation. Because people in general like to go to Ramallah because lifestyle in Ramallah is, as I told you before, is different. So they can move freely, they can feel safe. But because of this war and its impact on people, there is no buyers, let's say. And also the villages which are related to Ramallah, many people in these villages work in Israel as workers. So they were getting good money and they spend it in Ramallah. So now there is no money to spend in Ramallah. So the economic in Ramallah is not good at all.
So you were a teacher for a long period of time in a private school in the city.
Yes.
Now, your experience from that in government schools is going to be different, but what was it like to be a teacher in the Palestinian education system? And in addition to that, what was it like to teach Palestinian youth within a conflict situation in general?
Let's first talk about education in Palestine in general. Look, as you know, the most of the students in Palestine join public schools because it's cheaper, and it's as I don't know if I would try it manageable, so anyone can go to this school. But the problem is that the teachers in public schools don't get their full right of their salary. The government always promises them to give them their money, their what they agreed before. But unfortunately, the Palestinian government tricks them. They give them like 70% of their salary or 50%, claiming that the situation is not good and no one support us like this. And that's why teachers in Palestine feel frustrated or disappointed of the government, because they keep promising them that they will improve their life, by giving them more money. But unfortunately, it's all lies,
Okay.
So this is effect on students. So teachers try to work another work, and try to find something that helps them to move on, because the salary is not enough at all. So education is getting lower and lower.
You mentioned that the experience of Palestinian teachers and their experience of not receiving their full wage, their full salary from the Palestinian Authority.
Yes.
In terms of thinking more about the youth that have been in your classrooms over the years, what kind of an emotional impact do the issues of economic stresses due to prolonged conflict between Israel and Palestine? And what kind of an emotional impact, or in general, what kind of an impact does the conflict have on people and on students within your classrooms?
Yeah, actually, students, to be honest, try to feel that they are like any other students in the world. So they try to feel that we have the right to get our education, education, but it's hard to convince them that schools are very independent. We can't think about outside school. So just focus on the lessons like this, because at the end of the day, they will get out of the school and see what's going on around them, you know? Yeah, so this really affects on their focus and their emotional life, and they try to keep asking why this, when the solution is coming. And my classmate got injured from, for example, a soldier shot, and this make them feel that they are not safe, even in schools, you know, because they hear stories and they know stories in some schools where have been attacked, you know, or assaults of Israeli soldiers, and that's make them ask themselves that what is the difference between our school that's now safe and the other school which is been attacked by Israeli forces or any like this, or assaults from settlers. So this makes them not feeling safe, and they don't focus on just materials, school materials, you know.
As we wrap up today's episode, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our interviewees, Daniel and Musa, for openly sharing their views, experiences, and stories. Our next episode will air on Tuesday the 7th of January 2025. With Christmas fast approaching, I'll be focusing on family and festivities over the coming weeks. When we return in the new year, we'll speak with Paula, an Israeli living in Northern Ireland, and Hani, a Palestinian residing in Turkey. Until then, thank you for tuning in. If you have any feedback or comments, feel free to reach out via email at Israel-Palestine Unpacked, all one word, @gmail.com, or alternatively through our Facebook page. All contact details are in the description below. I hope you'll join me next time on Israel and Palestine Unpacked.